We were actually the featured brand in the number one top 10 food trends for 2021 from Whole Foods because it's the trend of wellness served. As America looks to achieve nutrition through what we're putting in our bodies and what we're eating, we're also looking for great, delicious flavors and functional worldly flavors, but also add that additional benefit of probiotic fermentation and function. So definitely really cool to be capturing on this groundswell. And I think, not only the benefits that are shown through health, but also through sheer flavor.
Let's discover the Cleveland entrepreneurial ecosystem. We are telling the stories of its entrepreneurs and those supporting them. Welcome to the Lay of the Land podcast, where we are exploring what people are building in Cleveland. I'm your host, Jeffrey Stern, and today's guest is Mac Anderson, and we are talking fermentation. So Mac is a co-founder and chief marketing officer of Cleveland Kitchen, formerly known as Cleveland Kraut, where they are on a mission to create world-class culinary fermented foods for everyone. Mac is a Cleveland native with a passion for business, for good food, and for good people. And after studying economics at Miami University, Mac started a career in finance and law before ultimately pursuing his longtime passion for business to help start Cleveland Kraut with his brother and brother-in-law. As the chief marketing officer, Mac has grown Cleveland Kraut sales from a side hustle at a farmer's market to the number one brand in sauerkraut nationwide and leader in the fresh fermented space with distribution in over 9,000 locations. This conversation left me really hungry for food, but quenched with knowledge. So please enjoy our conversation. So in the spirit of transparency, and so that everyone tuning in can really appreciate your graciousness as a guest, this is actually our second recording on account of some technical difficulties that we had. And I gotta say, I am even more excited to have you back. So thank you for coming on to share your story, Mac.
No, of course. Happy to be here again. Luckily, the story hasn't changed since we last spoken. So should be all set there.
All right. Well, let's tell the story. I'd love to start if you could just kind of paint a picture here of the inception of Cleveland Kraut and how your personal upbringing has kind of laid the groundwork for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always an interesting question. People are wondering how, three young guys in Cleveland got into selling aged cabbage around the country. But our story, it starts way back in the early 90s. My mother studied biology and also is a chef. She studied at Le Cordon Bleu in Paris. And so she always had a great focus on ingredients, what she was putting in her family's body, what she's putting in her own body. And, that definitely translated to her dragging myself, my older brother and CEO Drew, and then obviously our older sister before that, but out to, the great local farms here in Northeast Ohio, out to Amish country, kicking and screaming every weekend to pick fresh produce, to get great fresh produce or livestock and meats. And she started to realize, well before Cleveland had anything like a Whole Foods or even a Wild Oats back then, that there was definitely a market for, natural foods, for fresh farm raised produce, for, free range pigs, chickens, grass-fed beef. And so she actually started the North Union Farmers Market. It's a nonprofit here in Cleveland, Ohio. So she founded it in 95. So child labor laws aside, I was out there schlepping produce and working with farmers, alongside my siblings, my brother and my sister. And it was always our, summer and weekend job all the way up through college. It was just our built-in job that we would be managing markets, working at markets. And we really got a feel for not only, what great Ohio farmers were, who these families were, the attention that they put into their farms, to everything that they're producing, to the yields, to the harvest, but also really started to see the farm to table movement growing with the burgeoning food scene that was kind of emerging here in Cleveland, as well as, seeing some of these younger makers start to emerge and food producers. And we definitely took note of what made a great food product, how it was packaged, how these brands were starting to engage with consumers. And then obviously as social media started to emerge, how different brands were leveraging that to extend the brand out beyond just the farmer's market. And so we really paid attention to those brands, especially that made it on grocery store shelves. this definitely stuck with us, seeing these brands end up on grocery store shelves. And my brother actually graduated college with a degree in business statistics and headed to SunTrust in Richmond, Virginia on their mortgage analytics team. And he was, greatly missing kind of that Cleveland fare. It's not necessarily my heritage or my brother's heritage, but that Eastern European, that very Cleveland and definitely Midwestern fare of, pierogi, kielbasi, all those good things. And so, he was making all those things in his apartment. He was getting back to his roots, going to his farmer's market in Richmond every Saturday, buying fresh produce, chopping it up, and really fell in love with the art of fermentation. Fast forward, he comes back here to Cleveland to work for Key Bank, and he's having a beer with my sister's fiance at the time, Luke Visnick, our COO and co-founder. And Luke was an architect at the time, another young professional, but they kind of figured out over beers that they were both, making sauerkraut. So bit of a strange hobby to figure out that your future brother-in-law also shares. And so they're kind of having a few beers, crunching and munching on each of their kind of first recipes, and kind of realizing, doing some quick market analysis, that it's not in grocery store shelves. We'd seen obviously the rise of brands, and then we'd kind of seen from a larger business and capital perspective that, there's definitely investment coming into these smaller emerging foods, that natural foods are definitely on fire, that Whole Foods is growing at a clip, and all these great brands and products are starting to really gain shelf space, not only in your local natural food store, but also in nationwide grocers. So they actually taught me how to while I was at Miami of Ohio. My housemates, my buddies were wondering what the heck was going on in our kitchen, what was bubbling away.
I'm sure they were.
Yeah. They thought I was a pretty normal kid right up until I started chopping up cabbage and aging it in our cupboards. But, come barbecue season, everybody enjoyed the fresh flavor, the crunch. It was definitely elevating our diet that was rather, heavily influenced with light beer, as most college kids were. But, we kind of knew that we had a great tasting product, and, the younger generation was definitely open to trying it. And so I moved back and got a job in finance here locally. And we would all, Luke would leave the architecture firm, and Drew would leave Key, pick me up I was at Jones Day at the time, and we'd go to the commercial kitchen and, work till 2 a.m, 4 nights a week, and then, sell on the weekends. And, what really kept us going during those weeks or actually the year and a half of very little sleep and a lot of hustle, was the fact that consumers kept coming back week after week for not only more of their favorite flavor, but they were also seeking our new flavors. And they kept, farmers market's a great place because it's one of the only places, especially as a food or beverage, maker, that you can actually get direct consumer feedback, and they're going to pay you for it. So
right.
It's kind of invaluable for those, fledgling bootstrap startups to be able to get that kind of feedback. And we started to see the usage occasions, beyond just hot dogs, Reubens, and sausage, really grow out and actually turn into on salads, eggs in the morning, avocado toast, fish tacos. Of course, there's nothing better than a little bratwurst with nar or roasted garlic. But those traditional usage occasions were truly, emerging well beyond that. And then, the likes of Iron Chef Mike Simon, he'd send his sous chef down to get some for his menu pairings. And so kind of at the end of 2015, we kind of all quit our jobs, poured everything we had into it, and launched into Heinen's, was our first retailer back then. And today we are in almost 10,000 stores nationwide. We are the #1 brand in premium refrigerated sauerkraut, and we've expanded our product lines into naturally fermented dressings, and now kimchi as well. So, really excited that those are both products are almost in 2,000 stores each. So really seeing a lot of growth here. But yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's an incredible footprint, and I definitely want to dive a little deeper into the business and what you guys are working on. But I do want to take a quick step back and take a look at this from maybe a more macro level. So beyond those with Eastern European roots who are getting into fermentation to explore their own cultural and familial history, there does appear, like you mentioned, to be this like mass proliferation of and like societal drift towards fermentation across like all different kinds of foods. I'd like to get your perspective on like what is going on here. Why are people rediscovering and loving fermentation now?
I'm just that good at marketing, Jeffrey. That's just no. Yeah, I mean, it's across cultures. It's an ancient way to preserve the harvest. So anyone who's growing vegetables, after you traded or bartered everything away, you take what you had left during the winter, and you put it in a crock or a drum or bury it, and your family would kind of it would preserve well before refrigeration was around, and you get these great nutritional benefits, and also extended to beverages like tea and kombucha, which is obviously an ancient Asian tea. And folks, it's been an ancient remedy. It's been an ancient way to preserve and add flavor. And I think here in America, we're just definitely returning as a society to more focused whole food diets, to really really thinking about what we're putting in our body, and seeking out foods that are naturally functional and beneficial to our overall health. And we're definitely capturing in on that groundswell. So from things like kimchi to kombucha to everything like yogurt and all that good stuff, it's really cool to see everything start to emerge and come back. And we're just kind of following. You look at Southeast Asia, it's eaten every day from all kinds of dishes. And, obviously Europe, Germany, Belgium, they eat it all the time. So it's been fantastic to really see that start to come back. And, we were actually the featured brand in the number one top 10 food trends for 2021 from Whole Foods, because it's the trend of wellness served, as America looks to really achieve nutrition through what we're putting in our bodies and what we're eating. We're also looking for great, delicious flavors and functional worldly flavors, but also add that additional benefit of probiotic fermentation and function. So definitely really cool to be capturing on this groundswell. And I think, not only the benefits that are shown through health, but also, through sheer flavor. And people just don't fully understand everything that probably is fermented. Obviously, yogurt's one of those things that early led the charge, but even something like Frank's Red Hot is a fermented hot sauce. So it's definitely there for flavor purposes as well.
Yeah, you can have your Kraut and eat it too.
That's right. Hey, I might have to trademark that.
You got the best of all worlds.
Give you full credit there.
Now, I want to build on that a little bit, and maybe just at a high level speak to, from the probiotic perspective, separate a little bit of the fact from fiction. Why is this good for us? What's going on there?
Cabbage itself, just as a vegetable, as a raw vegetable, naturally has a ton of lactobacillus. So this is very healthy, naturally occurring bacteria. And the process of fermentation, natural lacto fermentation that we put it through, basically just allows those to proliferate in a naturally oxygen depleted environment. So we essentially break down the cell walls, add salt, and then whatever veggies we're going to do, or spices. And the salt helps pull out the water from the cell structure. And then in an anaerobic environment, we seal it, we block it off from oxygen, but CO2 can escape because that is a byproduct of fermentation. These naturally occurring, very beneficial bacteria do proliferate. So there's a few billion in every pouch. And it is a really fantastic way to, supercharge and balance your gut flora, get those naturally occurring great beneficial bacteria down there. They also really help, there's enzymes in there that really help pull nutrients from your food. And also the nutrients that are in your food are able to, really be maximized within your digestive process. So you're not only getting a healthier gut, you're getting more from every good food that you're eating. And then good gut health does, lend itself. More and more studies year after year keep coming back about overall mental health, overall body health. So it's definitely at the core, no pun intended, of a good foundational health system.
Got it. Thank you for explaining that. So, you mentioned kind of the footprint that you have today, beyond the original, perhaps vision, plan to take over the world with sauerkraut. With the rebranding of the business from Cleveland Kraut to Cleveland Kitchen, I'd love to get your perspective there on the broader vision that comes with that. You mentioned different product offerings that you're expanding into, but when you think about the vision and impact that you hope to have with Cleveland Kitchen, opposed to Cleveland Kraut historically, what are you guys thinking through on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we did kind of plan the business out to be a nationwide brand, but when you start at a farmer's market as a local vendor, you calling ourselves Cleveland Kraut is definitely limiting. So we wanted to ensure that we built a foundation on, kraut as a core product line and really start to saturate the market and start to take category leadership. But we've always had vision to expand outside of kraut and really build a platform of delicious food that is fermented and pickled and, provides great value. Not only is, one of these things that you're kind of hooked on, you're loving it on so many dishes throughout your daily diet, but does have that halo of health. So transitioning into Cleveland Kitchen, not only does it allow us to keep, making our city proud, but gives us that opportunity to build a platform brand and to really build ourselves into the nationwide kind of household name. We had a lot of learnings. We were sitting in the Kraft Heinz incubator. So their first class in 2018, I think, 500, 600, teams, businesses applied. We were one out of 5 that actually made it into the incubator. And we did very well in our class. We were definitely able to leverage a ton of great benefits from, such a large food CPG, from data that otherwise would have been unavailable to a small brand like us, to developing, we were already pretty good at sales and had a great product. We didn't do anything to the product, but really developing the understanding of calling on the likes of Kroger and Walmart. And, I've been lucky enough to schlep together great plans and be really good at it, but continuing to hone with some of the best in the world in terms of CPG salesmen. And then also, looking at data and trends and sitting with Michelle St. Jacques, who was head of brand at Kraft Heinz at the time. She's now the CMO at Miller Coors, and she was very helpful in sitting with us, among the other leadership as well. But, kind of helping us to understand where we could stretch in terms of products into really building ourselves into, a $200 million a year platform brand and building something, that Cleveland can really be proud of. We've got 40 employees here in downtown Cleveland, and, we hope to continue to grow and to continue to build ourselves up as a great employer and a beacon that Cleveland can be proud of. So yeah, I think it just allows for us to get into more exciting platform categories, into larger categories. Sauerkraut, although it's had, since we've started, probably close to over 1,000% growth, it is now, it's still a smaller category. So expanding into dressings, for instance, allows us to get into more people's carts and to more people's hearts. We're in a more traditional usage occasion, if folks are a little trepidatious to try fermented cabbage, starting with a dressing that just has this health tweak and helps them understand that fermentation means flavor and function is something that's great to us. And then getting into products like kimchi, which obviously is a great traditional, fermented dish that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. And, the velocities and the usage occasions there are fantastic. And it's just very exciting for us to expand here.
Yeah, I want to build a little bit on the Cleveland specific part of the brand. And what have you found to be the implications of tying the brand to Cleveland and the reception, feedback, pushback, anything that people are letting you know about the Cleveland branding, especially as you've built this national footprint?
It was definitely, obviously it helped us get off to a running hot start here in Cleveland locally. And it proved to be a little bit of a challenge in scaling beyond this market. But, luckily we jumped into the New York City market pretty early on, and we're doing very well. So I could really use that as a test case. And then we started to get data back that Cleveland has this fantastic, there's a feel to it. It gives a meaning to the brand. There's a blue collar, hardworking, tenacious, just feeling to the Cleveland and the work ethic here. And we're an unassuming but great city, and I think that has definitely lent itself. But there were challenges. A good friend and great supporter of everything local and a great partner of ours, Paul Abbott from Giant Eagle. We were crushing it in his Ohio stores and Market District and even in Indiana. And he's like, Mac, you guys are doing really well. I'm a little hesitant to put you in the Pittsburgh stores. But, I can't planogram you, which means like draw you into the sets, but I'll give you approval and you can go sell them one by one. I was like, all right, enough. So after give me the shot. And, after a month we'd sold ourselves in every store. We were off and cranking. I saw him a couple months later at a food show, and he just came up and shook my hand. He's like, I'm so sorry I ever doubted you. You guys are crushing it. And maybe that was the fact that to that point, Cleveland hadn't beat Pittsburgh in any kind of sport in quite some time. So I don't know if they had the same animosity back then, but no, it's given, a name, a meaning, a purpose to the brand. It makes it feel like it's a local brand. It gives it this trustworthiness, and we've seen it really play itself out very well nationwide, and it's a pride point for us, and hopefully a pride point for the city.
Yeah, it's authentic.
That's right.
You've mentioned, some of the learnings that you've had going from farmers market to where you are today. I just want to get your perspective, as a first time founder and kind of having stumbled into this out of love of fermentation and the product and what you're making. From a business perspective, when you look back, what are some of the things that have surprised you about building this company and brand as a first time founder?
6, almost 7 years now feels like some days like it's only been less than a year, some days like a lifetime. So we've definitely had a ton of learnings. Obviously, there's always a ton of surprises in the startup journey, but I think the main thing that stuck out is, how every big win and every major milestone that you set up for yourself. And I think setting goals is definitely important, and building out a yearly plan into a 3 and 5 year plan is really key. But you'll hit some of these goals. Maybe it's getting Whole Foods nationwide or launching with Walmart and X stores. And then you'd think like, oh, that's going to be the moment. I mean, the first time it came when we launched in Heinen's, it was like, oh man, we're at Heinen's. This is amazing. Yeah, we made it. And then we're like seeing like the volume, and it's like, oh, sauerkraut's not, people aren't buying 3 sauerkrauts a day in each household. So we got to go, we're just getting started. And then, yeah, it's always like, okay, how quickly we transition. Okay, what's next? How can we continue to build on this? Getting on the store shelves is definitely not the hardest part. It's making sure that it's definitely a big part of it. But as you grow and get these, it's making sure that you're supporting it, building the category, driving sales, and all the challenges that come with it. For us, it's been really key to be extremely data driven. We get that from a foundation of finance, and, really understanding what our key performance indicators are, making sure all of our partners do, making sure our team fully is, understanding of what our goals are, having great transparency from the top down, being able to lead a team and being humble when you have outside advisors. And we've been great about, not knowing what we don't know. I think there's always benefit to coming in as a potential disruptor or bringing new life to a sleepy category, not acting the same way a traditional CPG would, but also that there's a ton of learning that we can do from our advisors and from, our guy Terry, who brings 40 years of unbelievable experience and really helps me be a better leader and a better leverager of our sales team. So being open to growth and to outside input, and to, being able to move quickly and deal with, rapid fire changes is definitely been a key learning, and something that, all of a sudden you're in the middle of the firestorm and you never thought you'd be there. You never thought you'd get to this point, and you're looking back at all these store counts and I thought, oh man, I didn't even know this was this many stores in America. Like what's so how quickly it goes is definitely, it's hard to believe it's been almost 7 years.
Yeah, it's an incredible journey, and I'm sure a lot more to go.
Just getting started.
In terms of just getting started, how do you go about capitalizing this kind of business? You get this early success at the farmers market. People it's resonating. That you're getting that feedback. How do you take it from that point of inception to funding this business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think being able to have Drew, our brother, come from a financial planning background of setting up quarterly all the way to 5-year projections with KeyBank, he definitely was able to early on throw together capital needs and expectations. And well before we started really going out and starting to fundraise, having that in place and having a full understanding of if we were to jump into retail, if we were to start, we leveraged Luke, who's a great architect, to build out our facility. What do we actually need? And I think we were, prior to us launching in Heinen's, we were at a Browns tailgate giving out, still in our deli style containers.
Yeah.
And we'd go up to anyone grilling and drop off, hey, we're Cleveland Kraut, give it a try on your hot dogs and brats. And, one of my best friends, he was tailgating there with his dad, who was Dr. Julian Kim. He was the chief medical officer in oncology, head of surgery at UH. So obviously knows his stuff on the science side, but is also of Korean descent, and his wife is of German descent. So our nar was like the perfect marriage for their marriage. And they were huge fans. And, Drew and Doc Kim got to talking, and, we were, I wouldn't say we were 3 sheets to the wind, but there was wind and there were sheets, and we were drinking and talking about the business and where we wanted to go. And I think, Dr. Kim just turned to my brother and said, hey, what do you need? And my brother spit out some small number, and we kind of thought, oh, this is just banter at a Browns game. It was fun. It was great to walk through the business. And, the next day, my good friend Justin texted me. He's like, hey, my dad needs your guys' email. I guess you're talking about investment. And so that was one of them. We were lucky enough to get Luke's mother in. She really wanted to support. And then, just friends and family early on. That allowed us to grow to a certain stage. And then, we went out and raised our first convertible debt note. And, you make a ton of contacts at these food shows. There's obviously a lot of excitement around emerging brands, and, just building up the network that way and being smart about who you take money from, because, it's easy to say this when you've already fundraised and all these things, but you're really not just raising capital. If you got a great product, if your idea is good, there's always going to be dry powder out there. There's always going to be folks who are looking to invest in great businesses and great founders. So finding anything that can provide value beyond that. And we've been really lucky to get folks in that have either a ton of, CPG experience or built their own food manufacturing companies that were able to really help us in all facets of, our own operation. And then, folks like Turn Capital, who came in our latest equity round here locally, that are able to tie us into local resources and to be able to continue to bring, more capital and wealth into this city has been great. So really being selective on those who, you want to partner with for the next, ideally, decades, however long it's going to be, and understanding what their goals for the company are definitely key. And then seeing how you can leverage that network. And so we've been very lucky with our group of fantastic investors, and they've lended a tremendous amount of expertise on top of their capital. So I'd say, if you are a founder or someone who's looking to raise capital, be rather picky. I mean, there's sometimes a call for, hey, let's just get the check in, but if you can leverage it to make sure that you're getting some other provision of value.
Yeah, it reminds me of this quote. I do not remember who said it, but it's, I think, a good segue to what I want to ask you about next. But it goes something like, if you can't see yourself working with someone for life, don't work with them for a day.
Yeah.
In the spirit of that and working with people for life, personally, it's always been kind of a dream of mine to go into business with my brothers. And I'd love to just get your perspective on how that dynamic of working with your family and building this company really as a family has gone. Yeah.
Well, luckily, I have to spend the rest of my life with these guys, so it's kind of already built in. No, yeah, it's definitely, I think any founder, you're going to go through something with this person that is apart from your life partner, your husband and wife, is probably, you're never going to have this amount of time, this amount of stress with another human being. So, the fact my brother's always been a great role model to me, and, who I looked up to growing up, and we'd always kind of planned to go into business together. With Luke coming on board, and he had an extremely complementary set of skills to us. Obviously, I've done very well. I'm good at sales, and I knew I had that edge, and was great at marketing. Studied these things. Drew had his finance, and was already my built-in leader. So CEO made great sense, and shouldering the burden of CFO early on as well. And then Luke, with his being an architect, processes and ensuring things are, going according to plan, and straight lines and organization, all those things as you're a food manufacturer lend very well. And for us to be able to really set clear kind of boundaries for what our responsibilities were, and then just to go and attack them really helped. I mean, I won't say there's never been, obviously, any founder. If you go through an entire founder's journey and you're not having arguments, I'd wonder if you're human. But, there are going to be disagreements, and we've always kind of said, hey, let's have a voracious internal debate, fierce internal debate, and one outside voice. And luckily enough, growing up with my brother, we got enough tussles. I'm sure you growing up with a brother, you always will, that, I could be screaming or we could tackle each other in the next 10 minutes. We're like, oh, you want to go grab lunch? So we're laughing at something. So I think Luke we're definitely a little bit wild. We like to just go do it and figure it out along the way. And, having him there to also lend his organizational, abilities to help us build that thing as we're, build the plane as we're falling off the cliff, as it were, worked out great. And then, every win is sweeter when you think about, hey, we're building this for our family. We're building this for Cleveland. We're building this for our team, our investors, our employees, all of our stakeholders. But, when it's family, you're going into battle with those you want to trust. And, that's the other thing is work. I think as a founder, work never really stops. Yeah. But, any family function, gathering, holidays, we're talking about it and
talking shop.
Exactly. And that's just, it's been great for us. And I think it will continue to be for as long as Cleveland Kitchen is producing great food.
Yeah. What's the family throwing down from Cleveland Kitchen at family eatings? What are the favorites?
Yeah. So you might not be able to tell from looking at me, but my grandmother is Burmese, and that's where we got, the nar, the curry kraut, and, definitely the influence of kimchi. She immigrated to Detroit in the 50s. So in the 50s as a Burmese immigrant with my grandfather, she any kind of Southeast Asian community, whether it was Thai, Korean, Chinese, everything, it was all like, hey, let's gather, let's share cuisine. So my favorite food is curry. We always will get my mom to make a fresh pork or beef curry, sometimes lamb if she's feeling up to it. But yeah, we love to cook. Both Luke and Drew kind of battle on wood fire pizzas. I'm great on stir fry. I actually make a great dan noodle whenever my girl and myself are hosting. Goes great with nar kimchi.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the pairings.
Yeah, absolutely. So we grew up. My mom had a ton of Korean friends growing up, so we had kimchi in our fridge almost probably more frequently than sauerkraut, and so it's always been definitely something that we work into dishes, and our nar was definitely inspired by that a bit. But I throw the with pizza. I mean, you can top a pizza with a little roasted garlic, a little nar, something after the bake, like you would like a pepperoncini, just to add a little freshness, a little crunch. You get a probiotic benefit there, but we also love the smoked meats, and obviously the heaviness of the meat and something, acidic and tart like a sauerkraut cuts it very well. With curry or a stir fry that I make, or the dan, obviously curry kraut or our nar go very, very well. They've got, those flavor profiles. The nar has sriracha, leeks, garlic, roasted red pepper flakes, so it definitely leans on the side of the kimchi. And curry kraut with turmeric and ginger and curry, powder and mustard seed definitely has that aromatic flavor and a nice warm heat. I'd say we definitely lean that way. My mother obviously is just a great chef. So anytime we can get over there, we try and do a good family gathering, every Sunday, and we're still lucky to, it's shaped us as a culinary brand and a culinary family. So I haven't had dinner yet. My mouth's starting to water.
I know, got me very hungry over here.
I know.
On the topic though, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about, the Cleveland dining scene and just I just want your perspective here. There's no direction, just your take. Absolutely.
So again, my very first food was dim sum down at Liwa. That was my first solid food when I was a kid. So we've had an affinity for Asiatown. Actually, one of our very first family frequent restaurants that we were lucky enough to partner with on our kimchi is Korea House. So if you haven't been, just really phenomenal Korean barbecue, super traditional. Their kimbap, their bulgogi, japchae, those noodles are phenomenal. Obviously, a kimchi pancake you can't beat, but we were able to work with their chefs there. Again, a great point of Cleveland pride, and really do a really cool, authentic, traditional recipe. that would make, Korea and Cleveland proud. So gotta shout out my friends at Korea House. You can't go wrong really in Asiatown. Szechuan gourmet, if you like a spicy traditional Szechuan food, is phenomenal. Map of Thailand. If you're on the east side, Peppermint's probably my favorite Thai spot. We've got some great partners. Obviously, would be remiss if I didn't mention Mike Simon's Mabel's. Great barbecue. His burger joint B spot, big supporters of ours. They have nar on the pickle bar, and then at Mabel's, they have nar on every tray. We got my friend down here again on the east side, Lock, Stock, and Brisket. Some of the most traditional, delicious, brisket sandwiches. He also has one of the best chicken sandwiches in the city. I think the only spot that might come close or might be in contention is our good friend Larder. So Jeremy Amansky, who's also an excellent fermentationist and loves koji. That deli down in Ohio City, everything there is fantastic. You can skip over for a great sandwich at Urban Twine, the homies at Black Pig, or Ubuntu, which is, he's just transitioned it to to kind of a Japanese bar, like small plate style. Sasa here for sushi here on the east side. There's a lot of great. I love Flour. If you're going far east for Italian, Dante, great guy. I mean, that's the thing about Cleveland. We've got so many great food, amazing chefs. Obviously, you can't go wrong with a traditional. I know you're from New York, so Cat's Deli, but we got Slyman's here.
Slyman's, it's fantastic.
Slyman's is phenomenal. So goes great with Kraut. Can't beat it. But yeah, we're a good food city. It's if you're into food tourism, got to come to Cleveland.
Absolutely.
Now I'm really hungry.
I know. I'm ready for it. And on that, we can wrap this up here. The closing question that we have for everyone coming on is their favorite hidden gem in Cleveland. I feel like you just unearthed like many just on the culinary side, but yeah what hidden gems? Hidden gems.
I mean, everything for me. I probably am going to go back to just Korea House, because once things get back to normal, doing not only they're great friends and partners, but just doing a friends or family, just Korean barbecue dinner. You can throw it out on the grill, doing some kampai shots of soju, great Korean beer there. I think, maybe there's a lot of Cleveland that hasn't discovered it yet, and you can get it if you're not, until we get to those days, it is available on DoorDash. But yeah, I think just really leveraging and exploring Asiatown, especially Korea House, obviously a big favorite, Liwa and the whole Asiatown Center. I mean, that was one of the great things throughout the pandemic when Whole Foods, Heinen's, Giant Eagle had runs on rice and there's nothing. You can go down to the park and shop, and we were all taken care of. So it was,
yeah.
I feel like if you haven't explored to a full extent the Asiatown and everything it has to offer, I definitely recommend it. But I just thought there's a really good Italian spot. Oh, La Campagna. It's like in a strip mall, which is like, if it's come highly recommended, it's in a strip mall, it's good. That's like pretty much every good restaurant in LA. It's like some in a strip mall. But it's like, I think it's over near Parma. It's on the west side for sure. But La Campagna for some great traditional, very small, really cool family-owned Italian restaurant. But I'd say for anyone who comes to Cleveland or lives in Cleveland, you haven't explored Asiatown, get over there.
No, I'll second it. Well, Mac, I really, again, appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And I'm going to go eat some food right now.
Yeah, I'm starving. Thanks so much for having me. This is it's always a blast.
That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, so shoot us an email at layoftheland@upside.fm or find us on Twitter at podlayoftheland or at sternhefe, JEFE. We'll be back here next week at the same time to map more of the land. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please email us or find us on Twitter and let us know. And if you love our show, please leave a review on iTunes. That goes a long way in helping us spread the word and continue to help bring high-quality guests to the show. Taken Horden and Jeffrey Stern developed the Lay of the Land podcast in collaboration with the Up Company LLC. At the time of this recording, we do not own equity or other financial interests in the companies which appear on this show unless otherwise indicated. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Founders Get Funds and its affiliates, or Actual and its affiliates, or any entity which employs us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. We have not considered your specific financial situation, nor provided any investment advice on this show. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.